watching and listening to Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and your favourite podcasts.
Right, Chris.
Alrighty, a very good evening to you. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye. Hello. As I always say, you're around the world. Wherever you are, one of those will apply to you. This is LTID TV from Leicester Till I Die. Thank you for joining us. Welcome along on YouTube. If you're watching live, join in. We're going to go through the games, so please do keep up with the games as we go through them. So try not to comment on one that we'd mentioned 10 minutes before, because we'll all get confused. And if you are watching on catch-up, join in with your comments in the description below. We always like to read them, as long as they are respectful, of course. And if you're listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you very much for lending me your ears. Next time, could you please clean them? Wherever you are in the world, like I say, welcome along. Please, if you're new, subscribe, like the video, because that always helps as well. And if you want to become a member, just $1.99, not even the price of half a pint. Click the link below in the YouTube description. So this is the weekend roundup. It's myself, and look, you can see the other gentleman there, equally as smart as me. Some people say that he's a relic from an 80s rock band. All we know is he's called the Tom. Oops, and it would have worked had I brought him in. There he is, Tom. Good evening, sir.
How are you, Chris? Nice to see you, mate.
No, I'm nice to see you as well. I'm going to have to... You will become the new Stig, you realise that. I'm going to have to come up with a different introduction each week for you.
I like the Tom. The Tom's been a nickname of mine for many years, actually, so it was very funny you coincidentally came upon the Tom.
Did it really?
Yeah,
well,
seriously.
I don't know if I dare ask, to be honest with you.
No. People that know, mate. That's the way we'll say that one.
Is it? Right. Okay. We'll leave it at that. John is in. Good evening, John. How are you? Welcome along. Look, it does what it says on the tin. It is the weekend review, weekend roundup, whatever you want to call it. And as you can see there, the featured games, we are back to starting with the Leicester game, because Man City losing these days isn't such a surprise. Tom, you watched the Wolves Southampton game for us, because obviously a couple of relegation rivals there. And then we'll have fans' video reports for Liverpool Villa and Forest Newcastle. One probably went the way we expected. For me, one didn't at the Forest. And at the end, this is your big surprise. 4-4-2. 4 questions for 2 presenters. Or not 2 questions, 4 items of news for 2 presenters. And you don't want to know. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Chris. You froze up there a little bit. You're getting so excited about the 4-4-2 that you froze up.
I think you don't want to know what they are, do you? You like to be surprised. No, now
oh man, we're having technical difficulties. Sorry about this. Let me play on my wire. Yeah. You went and then I went. So now we're back. Try again. I do apologise.
Now we are back. Well, you are in the middle of nowhere, aren't you? In deepest Devon.
I am indeed. I'm having to rub some sticks together to get some internet sparks. So,
is that a euphemism for anything?
Not particularly, Chris, but your mind works in mysterious ways, my friend. We've always said it. That's why we come to this channel, right?
My mind does work in very, very, very mysterious ways. Right. Ronald is in. Hi, Ronald. I could do with the McDonald's now, I tell you. Really, really could. Problem is, I have it delivered because there isn't one near us, because Poole Town Centre's awful. Time it gets to me, it's always bloody cold. That's the problem. Problem with deliveries. But look, let's get on with it. We'll get into the matches as we go along, and we'll do the first one, which is, unfortunately, Leicester Man United straight after this.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel now and make sure you never miss another upload.
Leave a like now. Ring the bell and never miss another video.
Indeed. Right. So let us make a start. I think we all sat through it. Sat through it being the operative word. I mean, look, I am utterly and totally peed off. Like I say, I've got a show coming out tomorrow that I've provisionally titled Top Get This Man Out of Our Club Now. Are we being a bit harsh because it probably wasn't a game we expected to win, but there was just nothing. Sometimes, in defeat, you can actually sort of grab at bits of news here or there, or this was quite good, that was, but there was just nothing for me that positive that I could take from the performance.
No, Chris, it was lacking a spark. I'd definitely give you that. The interesting thing was we had more shots on target than Manchester United in the game,
Yes.
but that is not entirely how my memory remembers it, which shows you just how the game came across from, a Leicester fan perspective. But no, it was flat. I did wonder, as soon as we saw Vards wasn't on the team sheet, irrelevant of how Vardy performs, he is a presence on the pitch, and we lacked a bit of a presence, just sort of orchestrating and leading it from the front, which I wonder if maybe we'd have taken one chance. It might have been a different game. But in spite of that, the work rate wasn't really there. I don't see the level of commitment I'm wanting to see. And it seems to be this thing around what the players have been asked to do, and consequently it doesn't seem to be clicking well on the pitch. But I look at how we're playing, I'd say we're probably at best a Crystal Palace level right now, and I think they're in big trouble.
Exactly. And the problem is that you could argue that Wolves, and we have had this discussion, that Wolves, and we're going to come on to their game in a second, but they had you could argue they had a tough start, yeah, but now our tough start comes along, and then they start getting the wins on back of a win and easier games. Our gap isn't as big as it was. The gap is now down to 3 points, and it's just worrying. Is it time? Has he got to go?
Well, it's a difficult one to answer, because I think if we were guaranteed now, in spite of this, we will stay up, I think we'd stick with him. Because we all know what the deal is this season. We just got to keep the club in the division. That's literally the entire remit. From there, we can rebuild, because then the FFP side of things will fall back into a bit more of a natural place of the PSR stuff, which will allow us to do a bit more. I think it's very 50-50. I would at least suggest now we need to be looking behind the scenes at alternatives. There needs to be a considerable plan in place just in case. But I do think it's something worth questioning, because the problem is if it was a case of, I think the players are going to deliver more than what we're seeing now, we can probably give it some more time. But I think this is the best we're probably going to get. And if you look at Cooper's time in Nottingham Forest, this was kind of the best he got out of that side as well. And it served its purpose. But I just wonder now, that win for Ipswich, these little things happening behind us now that might creep us up a little bit. Yeah, I guess it's a bit worried all of a sudden, doesn't it, Chris?
I mean, you look at Ipswich, and I've got to say, again, we'll come on to their game. Well done to Ipswich, first win of the season. They're up and running. Away to Tottenham, and all right, I know Tottenham are a little bit iffy and what have you, called Spursy for a reason. But when I watched, and I've only seen highlights of that game, but they put a fight up.
Yeah, they did. That's right. Yeah. And that's the thing with Ipswich. And that's why we've all sort of romanticized them a bit, because, they give it a go. They're not afraid to actually go out there and give it all their attitude, even if they haven't particularly got the potential quality. I think we've got more quality, but then I'm wondering about the attitude and which one normally wins out. Normally the attitude.
It's all right having quality. And this is something that I have pointed, and I've got to say to any Man United fans that are watching that went out and bought a box of Kleenex and were jizzing all Sunday night because you've won one game. That's it. You've won one game. And yes, you've got a new manager come in, but how long ago was it when you were going, this is going to be 11 Targ and he's going to win us and all. So just calm down, Man United. Just calm down. You beat and absolutely, I'm not saying they didn't deserve to win. Okay, let me just say that. They were the better team. They played a really bad team in Leicester, and we were awful, but credit to them. They did. And they looked lethargic, but I don't think they had to get out of second gear.
No, the biggest problem we had in the game was to give the players like Garnacho and Fernandez that little bit of space was just going to be criminal, because the one thing they can do is, irrelevant if they're on top form or not, they can hit a shot from distance that's going to go in the top corner. The first
Yeah.
goal, we completely switched off for the throw in. He came back, Christensen, made a pretty good effort at saving what was looking a dangerous situation. Then as soon as the throw in came in, they were all switched off. That was it.
Simple mistake from Christensen. Don't let the ball bounce. How
Well,
many
exactly.
times have we got to do that for them to actually
Learn
realise,
something.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's a 6 out of 10 effort from Christensen every week. I kind of feel like he doesn't particularly want to be here. And I don't mean that in like he's anti-Leicester. He's just doing his job, but he doesn't really seem fully committed to it. He's always a 6 out of 10. He's never going to be a 9, I don't believe. And that is a problem, because I think we need everyone to be pulling towards 9s and 10s, at least for attitude and work rate.
The funny thing is, I'm trying to think. You know something. The problem with getting old is that you forget things so much. And I'm trying to think who I actually picked as my man of the match. It may well, and this, because everybody went for Soumare, and the guy that does it officially went for Soumare. I know you weren't impressed with him.
No.
I went for Buenete. I thought he did okay, and it was a bit unfortunate, the own goal, but at least, you see, to me, he appeared to be putting the effort in. Maybe he just sweats a lot. I don't know. Maybe he needs to have a word with Prince Andrew.
Oh, my word. Yeah.
Cool down a bit. But I mean, look, as soon as we saw there's no Vardy and no Ricardo, it's like, okay, oh shit. And then the worrying thing is that, all right, no Vardy, we bring on AU. AU isn't a starter for me. AU's the guy that comes on and just creates things and what have you when the defence is tired. And of course, who then is the only backup striker we've got? Edouard. I mean, how bad is it? We've got a pretty decent striker that we let go to a championship side that's banging them in. And yes, I know it's the championship. He's banging them in for fun. Who was it made that decision? Oh, yes, Steve Cooper. I mean, the guy is tactically inept.
You could also argue that he signed Skip in the summer. I question our central midfield as being one of our biggest problems. Skip hasn't actually proven to be the answer, has he? And he was his signing.
Do you know what? This is so funny, because I'm seeing this whole thing completely. I like Skip. And sometimes I would have him in over Winks.
Yeah, but Cooper obviously doesn't rate him, because otherwise he'd be playing week in, week out, wouldn't he?
Well, you would think so, him and Winks together, but he's got, his love child is Ndidi, who, as far as I'm concerned, can F off and never wear a blue shirt to Leicester again. But we've got him for three years. Round peg, square holes again.
It sums it up when Ndidi got played through and he was the highest man on the pitch, and you think, of all people, we might as well have Vestergaard there instead.
Might as well have Danny Ward up there, let's be honest with you. You know what I
True,
mean?
mate, true.
But it is, and all right, look, it's not his fault that Ricardo was injured, although we're back to, when you get players that get injured in training, you've got to kind of go, really? But I mean, we had a lot, obviously, under Rodgers, didn't we? So Justin had to play at right back, and he was no worse than anybody else in this game. But like I say, I just think he's persisting with players that are useless, like Ndidi and what have you. He's got £40 million worth of talent sat on the bench in 2 players. El Canouse and Skip.
Yeah.
Can we afford to have £40 million worth of talent sat on the bench, Dom?
I would say at this time we probably can't, because also we need to give El Canouse minutes in particular to get him up to speed, to show the worth and the transfer money we've spent out for him. If you're going to spend that sort of money on a player when we're struggling for money anyway, you might as well just chuck him in for a few games in a row and say, mate, you got 5 games here. And just play in this position, get used to it, make it your own, because this is going to be your domain in the future.
Yeah.
Going for this football
I mean,
club.
he hasn't looked particularly awful when he's come on.
No, not at all. Not at
He's
all.
had a couple. He looks like a Buenete in waiting, and maybe the season behind Buenete will do him good. But I just think, why is he still? It's like, it's almost like we've got Rodgers Mark II here, because
Yeah.
Rodgers nailed his career to Tielemans, who at the end couldn't give a shit, had no
Yeah.
commitment to the club, otherwise he'd have signed a contract so that we got something when he left. So and he was wandering around the pitch, and he seems to be doing that with certain players. And like I say, I know James James Justin had to go on that side. He doesn't seem to be playing the players to their best ability. And then you've got in-game management. You are 2-0 down, and you don't make any substitutions until the 70th minute, is it?
Yeah.
What time did
It
we
was
make
very
it?
late.
Well,
I think it
69
was
minutes, 31
68.
seconds.
Yeah.
So, they'd already made 2 substitutions by then, and they're 2-0 up. What was he suddenly hoping that the team that was 2-0 down and had just been refreshed is suddenly going to go, oh, hang on, we're rubbish now, go on. And the team that Leicester couldn't do a fucking thing would suddenly become brilliant.
It's worrying because what he said in the post match was that he basically admitted they lacked effort in defence and up top, which to me suggests he didn't see the point in making any changes because the lack of effort wasn't going to change with that. And that is a big worry when you think about
That's
it.
damning, isn't it?
Of all the red flags in football management or management in general, if your team aren't happy playing for you, which is a vibe we've all kind of had. I mean, there is this bias that we're Leicester fans and he's an ex-Forest manager. Ultimately, we all want what's best for our football club. And the concern is when we're used to a football club that's generally a family foundational football club that's run in that way, and you're seeing players that don't seem to be fully committed to the cause, which is now dropping us silly points. I said that point against Ipswich we got might have been 2 dropped we're going to regret, and look at it now.
Definitely. At the 77-minute mark, we were still only 2-0 down.
Yeah.
We were also losing on the sub score because they'd made 4 subs, we'd made 1. And it was it was Ndidi off El Canoes on, but there was no sort of change of game plan. And it's just like, well, hang on, I'll put a different player on and it's all going to again change. If he can't get that right, at 77 minutes, 70 minutes, you haven't made a substitution and you are 2-0 down. What? And then you make a substitution on the 87th minute. He brought Edouard on. So then we've now got to pay Edouard appearance money for that game.
Yeah, what was the point for a 3 or 10-minute spell, depending on added time there? There's not really any point. I mean, Edouard's obviously a failure because he's come in and he's not even had a look in from his loan. So that shows that behind the scenes, he's not impressing enough to even be considered. I mean, I would have thought going into this game, if Vardy was injured, you have to consider him because he's a bit more of a rounded forward than Jordan Ayew is. But consequently, that didn't happen. And I agree, and I think that's the interesting thing, not going back to the same thing too much here, but in the post-match when he was talking, I think he could have had an out if he looked at the statistics. If you look at the stats, actually, the game was deceptively even because the stats would show that if you just looked at the stats.
Indeed.
When you're watching it in the context, you can see the problems and why we haven't actually scored a goal. But that's why I'm surprised he didn't actually defend himself more if that was the case and if his substitutions were worthwhile, Chris, really. It was quite interesting in that regard.
Indeed, totally. Look, I wanted Cooper at the start of the season. I had 3. I had Cooper, Moyes, and there was the guy at West Brom.
Corberon.
Corberon, that's it. Corberon isn't going to come, and we can't afford him probably anyway. But look, Cooper, I thought would keep us up, but it's going to be so tight. And if we do not stay up and we go down, the EFL are going to be waiting for us with open arms. And that's not a nice hello and welcome. It's a welcome along, here's your points deduction, here's your transfer embargo, and they're really going to go for us. And we might not come back for maybe 10, 20 years.
Yeah, it's difficult because we don't know what sort of punishment we're going to get in the Football League if we get relegated either, because that is hanging over us a little bit. It's kind of like if you go back in that direction, they might throw the book at you with a points deduction as well. And also, bearing in mind we've taken out a loan this year against future Premier League earnings, it wouldn't seem particularly clever for us to get relegated. So you're right, there is a reason to be a little bit concerned. But yeah, is it time now? That is the question. I don't really know the answer. I think it's definitely worth considering. I think the interesting thing, Hooper's got to say the right things now. I think if there's a meeting about this, I think if he comes out and says things like he did in the post-match, I think it's a done deal, and we probably should look elsewhere, because I think that shows there's not going to be a change in how he's going to approach it. And we need to see that on the pitch now. We need to have a fighting chance going into the rest of the season.
We are a quarter of the season gone already. Can you believe? And yeah, all right. Look, you have a honeymoon period. When I looked at our opening fixtures compared to the likes of Wolves, they weren't that bad. And I thought, well, fair enough, because we could have been looking at a points deduction. I mean, God help us if we've been looking at a points deduction. And he has had to learn on the job. He's brought players in that he feels are experienced enough to keep us up, rather than the young, hungry, the Ipswich route. But then you look at the Ipswich game, you look at our game, I know which team I'm soon to be supporting at the moment.
Yeah, you'd sooner be supporting the one that was going to go down on its sword, wouldn't you, really? Which is not the way we're looking to do it now. Our vibration is we'll hopefully try and sniff a chance at sneaking in this, but it's going to be more based around the fact of 3 teams being worse for us than anything we're going to actually go and do out on the pitch. So, yeah, so that is concerning. And also when you look at the squad depth as well, I know we've not got a lot in the first team squad, but I'm surprised not to see more youngsters getting a look in. We've got guys down there who, you talk about Tom Cannon going on loan, we always mention Will Alves as one, and all these lads are meant to be very good, and we're not really seeing any of them.
What's happened to them?
Yeah, what about Marcel from last year as well? He's disappeared, and
I mean, you stick these youngsters on, at least they'll have a bloody go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they got something to prove.
When I will be dead before Alves breaks into the first team, and he won't then be a young prospect. Rooney was 16. If Rooney had been playing for Leicester City, he wouldn't have got into the first team now, and he's now retired. That's how shit we are at bringing youngsters through.
Yeah, we've not got a good history of this, have we? We're very good at poaching other people's youngsters. Perhaps we're not so good at cultivating our own until recent years, But yeah, it's disappointing, Chris. Hopefully, we'll see a bit more of that in January, and a bit more bravery, because we also, for PSR, you've got to be developing players now.
Yes,
you've got to for your future.
Yes, I mean, for me, he goes now. He's had that. I'm prepared to have given him a chance. Oh, I just want to say hi, Melina, by the way. How are you? He's had that start. He's had to kind of learn on the job, but it's 10 games in now, 11 games in fact, and he has no idea what his best starting 11 is. I don't think we've got a best starting 11. I honestly don't think the players are responding to him. For me, get him out the club now. But do you think we should stick with him until January?
Well, I can tell you what will happen. He'll be staying around probably, and we'll watch other clubs like West Ham sack their manager, and they'll go and get someone in like Graham Potter. We'll see Moyes end up somewhere else, and we'll miss the opportunity to get him in. And then we'll probably be left with a difficult decision in January, like you say.
Yeah.
So that's, I think that's more likely, Chris. Do I think we should push him now? I am entirely 50-50, which makes me a pretty bad guest to have on. There's a part of me that goes, okay, the base of it is a 6 out of 10. We can still probably get enough points to be in and around the 17th, 18th place mark. But I just don't like the energy about it either. The energy about it concerns me, and we underestimate that element of it sometimes. And I wonder if you look at Van Nistelrooy's short spell at Manchester United and what he's done there, just that little bit of a more positive approach. They look like they're going to now walk into Amrin's hands and probably have a better shout than they did if he hadn't had the opportunity to manage there for a few weeks.
Yeah. 2 words to you. But you're going to be a politician because you like sitting on the fence. But 2 words for you, Mark Robins.
Yeah, I think got a lot of time for him. The way Coventry have treated him this week has been appalling because he's normally a late starter, and I think if they'd given it another month and then the January transfer window, I'd have no surprises in
Somebody said
into
to
the
me,
playoffs.
yeah, somebody said to me like, well, he hasn't got any Premier League experience.
Doesn't matter.
Neither had Martin O'Neill.
Neither had Eddie Howe, who's the last man to lead a club from League Two to the Premier League, which was
Yes,
Bournemouth, and
yeah.
that's what Coventry
So
could have done.
I'd have been. I wanted Mark Robbins, who's one of mine on the shortlist before we got Enzo. But of course, at that time, nobody knew that Enzo was even in the, in the running.
The problem
But
is, it's a hard gig for now, isn't it? If it was like we were going to try and tackle a promotion in the Championship, it's different. But when you're facing a relegation scrap, you want to try and snag a Moyes before that, really, don't you, to be safe?
you do. But if we don't do something quickly, we could be looking at that going for somebody
Or
to
we'd
get
be,
us out of the Championship again.
Chris, or we'd be really brave and we do what Brighton have done and we go and get like a random manager like a Will Still, who's meant to be a wonder kid manager, who's got
Yeah.
crazy ideas, and just see, like Enzo, if it blows up in our face or not.
But at least he's got the ideas. I'm not seeing any ideas from this guy.
I think we're so afraid of our own downfall this season because we've been kicked a lot in the last few years that it's really affected us in how we're thinking and delivering. And I think that's a problem. We need to be braver.
I think the problem is that Cooper's just shit. I think that's it at the end of the day. I can't get
Don't
past
mince your words there, mate, at all, right?
that. Hi Ray, how you doing? I'll forgive you for being late. Yeah, you see, I don't sit on the fence, mate. I don't sit on the fence, I believe the fences in Devon have all bend in the middle a little bit.
Yeah, indeed, mate. They've got my buttock crevice in it.
Exactly. Right, let's move on because this was a game that was between two rivals to Leicester in the relegation fight. Southampton,
Yep.
who had a win, Wolves, who hadn't. I don't know what I went for with this. Probably I didn't go very well because I ended up with hardly any points. I went for a 1-1 draw, so it shows what I know. You watched this.
Yeah. It went
all,
exactly.
all I've seen is Southampton were very unlucky with VAR.
Well, it's funny because the game went exactly as I expected, except you could say for Southampton, they'd have every right to be, I want to replay this football match, because every decision, quite frankly, in that game, with VAR being there, at the game, went against them. And they all changed the game. And actually, it's the first time this season I could generally go, I think this game was refereed so badly, they got everything backwards. It was horrendous, Chris. Honestly, I've never seen anything like it. Wolves played well. Southampton, lots of possession, but once again, no quality to be able to score a goal, particularly. But despite that, they scored a goal after 12 minutes. It should have been given. It never should have been disallowed. There was nothing in it. So it was a very bizarre day for that, and I don't quite understand what went on there.
Well, I mean, all I've seen is people saying that, was it clear and obvious that it wasn't a goal? The referee had given it on the pitch, I believe, and then told to go and look at the screen. And we know I don't know that there's a referee in this division that's got the balls to say no, I'm sticking to my original decision. But I mean, Wolves went ahead after 2 minutes, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They started off the blocks pretty well, and then Southampton just got to their game of taking possession, really. But yeah, I mean, like you say, it's a huge thing, this, because this is a game which can cost both clubs their Premier League status in the long term. That's £180 million. These decisions can't be wrong. And like you say, that decision for the Manning disallowed goal, which would have levelled the game after 12 minutes, and rightly so, it was completely incorrect because he never should have gone to the monitor. Why they advised him to when he made the right decision, there was nothing particularly in it. You get these little tussles in the box. There was nothing in it at all. In fact, if anything, it could have been given the opposite way around, which shows you how 50-50 it was. So, yeah, it was very remarkable in how almost like the pressure of the crowd got to him a bit as well, because we know Molineux is a very noisy crowd, and fair play to Wolves because they were very loud on that day. You could tell the fans wanted that win, and I think it affected the referee as well.
But they shouldn't be affected, should they? And I know it's easy for us to say that, Robbie Williams pukes up every time, before he goes on stage. But look, you said about the Leicester game, we actually had more shots on target than Man United did. Southampton, no, they had 9 shots, but no, they had 71.1% possession, Right? Wow. They had 9 shots. They had double the touches, 841 to 441. They had 673 passes compared to Wolves' 278. But in all of that, they did not get one shot on target for 90 minutes. That is championship football, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah. The problem they got is up top, they got no ability to be able to make a final ball work. They could do everything in the midfield holding possession. They play a nice tiki-taka style of football. Like you say, if they win the championship this year, I'm sure they'll be right up there in first or second place and probably dominating it. Because the gap and the disparity between like the mid-table of the championship to the bottom of the Premier League is now remarkably big. But the problem is they also were giving the ball away at the back silly, and Wolves were literally waiting for these moments. Wolves let them play their game, because they knew Southampton, like they've proven all season, are going to play this possession-based style, but they're not actually going to be effective. I mean, Russell Martin is basically doing a Vincent Kompany. He is going, I'm going to play my style of football to death this season. And I think he's in it for himself. I really do. I don't think he's actually doing what's right for Southampton now, because they've got players up top. If they were pinging balls into the box a lot more eagerly, rather than trying to play total football, they'd probably score a few more goals.
Well, let's have a look at that, because they've played 11 games. They've only scored 7, so that's less than 1 per game. And let's just say that was the first game this season Leicester hadn't scored, but we've scored double, 14. But they've conceded 21 goals. Now, I have to say, the embarrassing thing is that so have we. But at least we're scoring them at the other end, which, well, we weren't obviously at the weekend, but we had been. Southampton are on minus 14. Again, I'm sorry, Southampton fans, but I'm looking at that and thinking, that's relegation form.
Oh, yeah, they're definitely going down unless they make some changes to their tactics. I mean, I think that they've got enough there if they were brave enough to make that change. But I also think their manager is a bit ignorant. I think, in all due respect, I think he comes across as, like I say, this is going to be my way or the highway. I'm going to run this boat into the ground. And he's currently sinking the ship because he's not showing enough. He always endorses himself in the press conferences. He reminds me of Brendan Rodgers in that regard, just always, protecting himself. And I wouldn't call it out if I didn't think it got to the point now where it's becoming stupid, because Wolves literally in this game, in spite of the decisions, take it out of the VAR decisions' hands and actually score some goals, because they should have, at least after that one that got disallowed, gone on and created an opportunity to score a goal. They just had loads of possession after that until half time, and then Wolves had to come back into it, and of course they nicked it.
I mean, this is a huge thing with me, and it goes back to the Rodgers days when, if we, I don't care how many shots we have, but we need to have at least some shots. I mean, sometimes we only had 1 or 2 shots, but you're not going to win games if you're not getting shots on target, and you're not going to get shots on target if you're not taking shots. But to go in the Premier League, and I don't know whether Leicester have been like this yet this season, but to go through the whole game and have not one single shot on target, I think is disgusting. Russell Martin, outside of Southampton, seems to be quite a popular manager. Now, whether he's got a future or whatever, but I mean, is he hoping that Real Madrid are going to come in for him if they get relegated?
I'm honest to God, I think he's got an agent that's literally in his ear telling him, just keep doing you, and I think we'll see what comes out at the end of this.
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, I'm looking at that now, and I think Southampton, I know we're only a quarter of the way into the season, but I think it's Southampton plus 2 others.
I think you'd be very close there. I mean, the thing is, they don't seem to be showing any signs of getting rid of him or anything like that. So until that happens, I completely agree. I just think they're being so predictable now. They're literally telling the same story every week on the football pitch, and the results aren't changing. Unless they go out and spend a lot of money in January, you can bring in a player like a Matthias Cunha, ironically, for Wolves, who every time they gave space, utterly punished them. And he is such a top quality player. They need someone like that if they're going to play like this, someone who's going to bring that magic to add to the tactics and the possession.
And we know, don't we? You don't having all the possession doesn't mean you win things.
No, it can get quite depressing because you see opportunities slip by, and then you got a VAR decision later on that's probably going to cost you a couple of points. It's distressing.
Who was it? I'm trying to think what team it was that won the Premier League with the lowest ever possession stats. Oh, it was us.
I think it was
Yes,
us, mate. I think they
it
called
was.
us bouncers.
But look, so there we go. Wolves. Well, I mean, Gary O'Neill looked very happy at the end of the game, as I said to Paddy, the Bournemouth fan. I said, have you used all your tissues up as well? But he is a bit of a Gary O'Neill fan. Can you see Wolves getting out of it? Have you lost me again?
Can, but I still wonder if, Chris, they should probably consider a change, because I think they've been limited now to games with limited possession. They're having to counter-attack teams to steal games. Their manager's smart enough to be utilising what they got well. I just look at their squad on paper, though, and I look at them and go, I don't really feel they should be down there. And I think that's a big enough of a red flag if I was a Wolves ownership to go, I think if we got someone in with a bit more experience, with all the love to Gary O'Neill in the world, a bit more experience how to handle a team like this, I think, like a David Moyes, ironically, I think they would see a lot better results. I think they become a more balanced team.
This is the thing, isn't it? Gary O'Neill, love him or hate him, I think he should go simply because of the start they've had, and they are an established team, but he hasn't got that experience, has he? You know, because Bournemouth was his only other job. But
No.
look, there we go. Wolves, well done to Wolves. Your first win. Everybody's got a win now. Yes, every team's got a win, which means every team's catching Leicester up. But there we go. So let's have a look. Next up, it was Liverpool versus Aston Villa is the game I've chosen here. Now, if you just bear with me a second, this was the late kickoff on the Saturday.
Yeah.
And I had this down as 2-1, so I wasn't that far off. Before we get to the Liverpool fans, because I say I've got a video from Doug from the Dugout Football channel, guys. He's a big friend of the channel. We do a lot of videos together, obviously the shit shirt shows and all that sort of thing. Go and give him your support. He's very kindly done a video. I know, again, early days, but is this Liverpool's to lose?
Well, it's looking very good for them, isn't it? Because they're literally, every game is the same for them. Every week I feel like I'm coming on here and going, they face a bit of adversity and then they score a goal. And both of these goals were just counter-attacks that utterly cut Aston Villa open like they weren't there. And just the level of sharpness and quality. And once again, it's Mo Salah. I mean, for me, the bigger question, rather than them, are they going to win the league, is are they going to keep Mo Salah? Because I don't know how you replace him.
No. But let's get Doug in, and let me just make sure that I've got the right thing. Yes, I have. So I say this is Doug. It's on the Dugout Football channel. He does he does Liverpool content because he's a Liverpool fan, but he also does a lot of general Premier League. Do go over here and show him your support, guys. Let's see what Doug's got to say.
Premier League, 5 points clear.
Okay.
Life as a Liverpool fan right now is amazing, absolutely amazing. Top of the Premier League, 5 points clear. Top of the Champions League as well. 4 wins from 4 in the Champions League. 15 wins out of 17 for Arne Slot. Only points dropped really Arsenal and Nottingham Forest, which has been very, very good. But yeah, Liverpool 2, Aston Villa 0. Very, very good win. And to go into the international break with another win is very, very good. A lot of people said then that we would have a bit of a sort of a downward spiral. We've had a real tough run of fixtures. Let's be honest. We've had Chelsea, we've had Leipzig, we've had Arsenal, we've had Brighton twice, we've had Leverkusen, and we've had Aston Villa. The only drop points that we have from that was Arsenal. So make it make sense. But this game, we started really, really well. The crowd was absolutely buzzing from that result at Amex, when obviously Brighton beat Manchester City by 2-1. The crowd was up. The crowd was lifted by that. I thought we started really, really well. We were on the front foot from the minute go. I think Villa had a wee mini spell in that first half, where they did look like the dangerous side, as well. But the first goal comes from, let's just say, their corner. It was basically end to end, and it was a kind of a Jurgen Klopp goal almost, when it was like the red arrows. Everyone was going out, but Van Dijk goes to play Salah. Salah goes straight up the pitch, fouled by Leon Bailey. Now, if Leon Bailey is very fortunate, he is very fortunate, because if Darwin Núñez doesn't score, I think Leon Bailey was going to be sent off. But amazingly, David Coote, who has, well, if anyone has seen the video, makes it for very interesting reading. David Coote has basically been in an X-rated rant. So yeah, he could be in serious trouble. But yeah, he was going to play on. He didn't see a foul and Mohamed Salah getting absolutely manhandled by Leon Bailey. And obviously, thankfully, Darwin Núñez scored, because it was a very, very good finish from Darwin Núñez. Takes it around Martinez. And, the thing is with Darwin Núñez, we always say this, he seems to take the harder chances very well, but it's the easier chances he always seems to make a mess of, which is very strange, to say the very least. But he is very erratic in his finishing. But the goal, very good finish, top corner, and that was obviously 1-0. So 1-0 at half time, very, very good, very, very good. I think Villa did test Kelleher. Kelleher had a couple of saves to make, especially from their corners. One from Onana, which he stepped away, which was very, very good. Then another one where he saved again from Onana, and then I think it was Gravenberch who made a very good tackle to clear it as well. I know Villa had a penalty shout in the first half. I think if you see it again, Ollie Watkins is probably, trying to perform for Swan Lake, because it was a real bad dive. It was a real dive. And he's even kicked the back of Ketanati's leg as well. He's almost kneed him. So that's a foul. That is a foul. Second half, again, much of the way that sort of the game was going, Villa did have their chances, but I never felt we were really threatened by Aston Villa. Watkins had one, went wide. I think as well, you've got to say that the second goal comes from a bad mistake. Carlos, don't know what he was doing, headed on to Salah. Salah goes straight up the other end and scores past Martinez, and that's the game over. And now Mohamed Salah, that's 10 goals, 10 assists in 17 games this season, 20 goal involvements, and we're only on the 11th of November. So goodness knows what numbers he's going to have. As well, but I cannot complain right now being a Liverpool supporter, and I am very, very happy with the way that we're playing. So long may it continue. Southampton, Real Madrid, and Manchester City after the international break. We'll see where we are in January, but so far, so good.
Thanks very much, sir. And yes, I've just put the sign up. I was getting confused. I'm thinking, why isn't Liverpool up? And I have got the Liverpool banner, but unfortunately, look, I was trying to rush through them, and I couldn't have picked a worse team to put up there instead of Liverpool, and I didn't have time to quickly do another one. So I apologise to every Liverpool fan and every Scouser out there. There should be the Liverpool badge up there.
Professional show here.
Yes, yeah. To be all right on the night. Well, it won't be. That's the problem. Yeah, I mean, he pretty much summed it up. I mean, when you look at what Slaughter's come into, Amaron could only dream of that, couldn't he?
Oh yeah, the squad depth Liverpool have got is remarkable, and they've also got the boost of having a better academy than the majority of other sides in the Premier League as well. So if you look at what problems Man City are facing right now, Liverpool have someone like Bradley comes in who actually looks like he can play in the Premier League, or Quansah or whatever. So yeah, they're doing incredibly well. He's walked into a good gig, but he's handling the gig very well, I think, as well, which is always the important thing. You can be given something, but you can mess these things up very quickly, and bigger managers have done it in bigger clubs. So.
They certainly have. And look, I only had Liverpool, I think, not winning it, not second. And I thought, Klopp, I mean, how do you replace somebody like Klopp by losing one game in the Premier League, and, he can't get, like Doug said, top of the Champions League, top of the Premier League, bite yourself because, it happens. But again, Aston Villa were very disappointing from what I saw of the game. And I had it on when I was doing things. 2 shots on target.
Yeah, they didn't have a great game. The only thing they really offered was danger from corners. Apart from that, I think there was a little bit of fear in them because they knew if they got too close to Liverpool, what would happen. And the times they did it, they got utterly punished because Liverpool just went on the counter and killed them. So there was that fear there. They committed to the game. I'll give them that from the away side. They definitely committed bodies forward. If they hadn't committed so many forward, perhaps they might have got a 0-0 out of it. But you've got to respect them for having a go at it. And like I say, actually, set piece wise, I thought their corners were very good, and I thought they always looked dangerous from them. So if one of them had gone, then it might have been a bit more of a livelier one from them.
Might well. You mentioned him. Doug's mentioned him. Mo Salah. I think his contract's up this season, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
He's not, from what I can see, he's not making any big noise about signing a new one. But then, I mean, it's in his hands, isn't it? But I mean, Liverpool, surely you just go, here's the check, just fill it in yourself.
Well, yeah, I think the problem would be, though, as well, is he going to look for a retirement gig now, perhaps, to get himself some payment? Because there's no doubt he can walk into the Saudi League and probably command £500,000 a week, which is the sort of money Liverpool, cannot offer themselves, can they?
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest problem they're going to have is if he does go, they're going to have to invest and try and replace him, because I don't think there's anyone naturally in that team who's going to step up into that. The closest might be Curtis Jones, ironically, but does he have that little bit of flash about him? He's very solid, very dependable. I like him a lot. I'm not so sure on that other one. But to get a player like this, you're talking Jude Bellingham levels, aren't you? You're talking £100 million. They don't come along often. So you kind of got to end up with one in your hands a little bit. So if I were them, I mean, they get to see all the science behind him, all the sports science, because he's getting on a bit now as well. But he still looks incredibly fit. As long as the numbers add up, I'd still try and make a strong play to keep him if I could.
Yes, indeed. I mean, it says something when, I'm playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world, Liverpool, but you know what? That's not really my retirement. That's not going to keep me in the manner to which I'm accustomed. I mean, it says it all, really, doesn't it?
I'd be funny, Chris. If someone offered me £500,000 a week to move podcasts, I might have to think about
it. What you're saying? You dump me? Oh, that's charming.
I'd buy you a few drinks. I'd buy you a few drinks, Chris.
Oh, cheers, mate. Cheers. Look, can I just say, Aston Villa, one job. I had it down for a 2-1 Liverpool win. One job, and you couldn't do that for me. Let's move on to our last of the main 4 that we are covering. Hopefully, I've got this one right. Yes, I have Forest Newcastle, and I featured this one because I actually thought that maybe if Newcastle were to lose it, that Eddie Howe might be in a little bit of trouble. When he came in, I very much saw him as a stopgap, if you like, because I thought they're going to want a Mourinho or a Klopp. They want the richest club in the world now. You know what I mean? And you've just got to. Is Eddie Howe the man to do that? And look, what he's done, and most Newcastle fans love him. But I mean, Newcastle at the moment, all right, now they've won that game, but they're still only sat in 8th. This is the 3rd season now that they've been in control, the 2nd full season, the owners. I'm just wondering if they're going to look at it and go, I mean, fair play to Newcastle, because they are trying to play by the rules. They're not just going out and doing a Man City and buying everybody they can. So fair play to them. But I wonder if 1 or 2 Newcastle fans, and I love the Geordies, absolutely love them. I just wonder if 1 or 2 of them are going no, we should be doing better than this now we've got all this money. It's natural, isn't it?
Well, it is. I think the thing which is in their advantage is that Tonali made his return off the bench, didn't he, in this game as well? And actually, I remember we've been talking about it a couple of weeks. There was a comment left last week, I believe, on the video, Chris, which a Newcastle fan basically said that there wasn't much pressure from Newcastle fans towards Eddie Howe, and actually they were quite all right with things. And I think this performance has been saying what I've been saying for 2 or 3 weeks now, because they, had the games against Chelsea, they played well and did well. And what they've had is they've had injury problems as well, and now they've got players coming back. Like Barnes was back involved as well today. Gordon looks like he's finally improved as well, because he was looking like he wasn't able to carry the weight they required from him, but he was superb in this game as well. I think it's coming up trumps for Newcastle. I think this is just the start now of them really pushing on. I think with Guames, sorry if I can pronounce that correctly, Bruno, in the midfield with Tonali, I think those two are going to be a dominant force in the Premier League central midfield stakes going forward. And I think watch out, because I think they're going to be up there. And as we've seen with the point disparity this week, it's like 1 point between a whole gaggle of them now, all competing, which is exciting. And I think it's going to come good for Newcastle.
Good. Rabbit Man, hi, good evening. Good timing, because the next game that we're going to look at after this one is actually your game. So that was good timing for you to come in. Look, I actually asked, and Michael is in as well. Hi, Michael. How are you? Welcome along. I actually, I'd got this as the 4th game, and as you know, we've got the Leicester game, we've got the game you watched, and then 2 video games, and then we'll just run through them quickly. But Forest have been on a bit of a good run. And I actually thought that something might come of this. Now, look, if you're a Forest fan, oh dear, you lost and you've dropped down to 5th. We wish. You know what I mean? It was like, we'll take that. But, I have got to say, fair play to Forest. And yes, all right, they're East Midlands rivals, but that's it. They are rivals. You still have to doff your cap off to them. I got them finishing bottom, so as I say, totally out of got that wrong. Nuno is getting a great tune out of Chris Wood. He's caught. Whatever he's doing it right. But it wasn't to be for Forest. But I've got Des Oldham, who is a Nottingham Forest fan. Let's see what he has to say about the game.
Des Oldham, Forest fan, with a quick review of the Forest-Newcastle game, in which the Reds were beaten 3-1. When Forest took the lead after 22 minutes, it looked like it might be 4 wins on the bounce. All Reds fans had been waiting for Murillo to get his first goal for the club. The excitement in the City ground and the thought of pushing even further up the points table was really, really exciting. Forest had a degree of control in the first half, kept Newcastle at bay, kept Bruno and Joe Linton particularly quiet. That was important because at the break, Newcastle came out a completely different outfit. Bruno got the bit between the teeth. He was absolutely running the show. A switch of wingers from Joe Linton and Anthony Gordon meant Joe Linton's game also picked up. They proved too strong. Whilst Forest have been great of late, the midfield gets in the opponent's face, gets right amongst the game. Today, Newcastle were just too superior, had too much class and had too much force. When Isaac scored his customary City ground goal, in reality, they only really looked like one winner. The Reds tried hard to get back into the game, but Newcastle had a real stranglehold. The aforementioned Joe Linton picked up the ball on the halfway line, drove forward and curled one in, and when it was 2-1, it was effectively game over. From that point, again, Forest came, made substitutions where the can. Elliot Anderson came into the game. He was desperate to get at his former club, but nothing was really coming off for the Reds. No clear-cut opportunities, and no opportunities, more importantly, for Chris Wood, who's been in fine form. He failed to get on the score sheet. Forest failed to get back into the game, and late on, former Leicester player and of course rival to the Reds, Harvey Barnes wrong-footed Matt Sells and slipped it in the bottom corner. At that point, it was fully stamped. Game over. Forest have suffered the second defeat of the season. Let's not press the panic button just yet, but there's some work to do to be able to compete against teams like Newcastle. Wins against Palace, Leicester and West Ham were slightly easier than opponents we faced today, and hopefully going forward we can get about teams like this a little bit more. They'll do well for the experience. Crash back down to earth, a reality check, whichever way you look at it. Forest can go again. Next up it's Arsenal. That'll be tough too, but with points on the board, they've got everything to look forward to. Come on, you Reds.
Thanks to Des Oldham there. Like I say, Nottingham Forest fan, but we have a great relationship with him again. It is rivalry, and that was what it is about. Rivalry and banter, and you help each other out. So thank you very much to Des for doing that. And I thought you could see there, straight after the game, he did that for us. Lovely shot with the ground behind him. To have a manager that can come in at half-time and change things around. Wouldn't that be lovely?
Very true. It would be lovely, wouldn't it? Yeah, I mean, Des has nailed it there. I think everything he said about Nottingham Forest there is utterly perfect. I mean, I think it's a learning experience for them. I like how they're not getting carried away. They were so loud again. They're enjoying it, For being our rivals, it's always good to see a football club enjoying themselves. So I think if we're going to lose this game, lose a game going to international play, because a bit of a reminder, you're really safe, and they're going to be right up there come the end of the season somewhere. But
they've not got to worry, have they, at all?
Sorry, Chris, I didn't pick up that. What was that?
They've not got to worry at all, Forest, this season.
Oh, no, not looking behind them. I mean, I think if they end up in the Conference League spot, they could take that as a fantastic season. They might not make it because there's a lot of competition there, but they still should be delighted because it's a major step forward, because becoming an established Premier League club is what they want.
It is. And look, I love having them back in the Premier League. I'd love Coventry and Derby to be up here, because for years we didn't have a proper rival, did we? We were looking at Villa and we were looking at Wolves, and they're not our rivals, but that was the nearest we had. And look, fair play to them. And when they beat us, look, they taught us a lesson. And, to go up to third, we weren't being beaten by the Nottingham Forest that was, funnily enough, under Steve Cooper. This is the reborn Forest. But fair play to Newcastle. They needed that win, I think, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. They needed to be able to put a bit of weight behind the performances they'd had, because they've been lost, like you say, in translation via results, and that's what creates these things where you're thinking, well, what is the plan? But no, I think, like I say, they're in a good spot. I think it only gets better from here because they've got players coming back from fitness. And obviously, as time passes, the more money they'll have to spend because of PSR.
Yeah. Indeed. Right, let's move on. Those are our 4 featured games. So we're going to speed, but we're going to go through the next ones quickly, and we'll do that after we've had a word from some fans.
Hello, Matt Elliott here.
Hi, Alan Smith here.
Hey guys, Ian Hume here.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here.
Be sure to watch
Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV
for all the latest Leicester City news and information.
You can also subscribe on YouTube and various social media channels
for the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football Club.
Come on, you foxes!
Indeed. Well, thanks to obviously all of them for doing it. Spurs Ipswich. Oh, go on, I'll give you your moment. Somebody said last week, apparently.
Well,
I don't remember it, but this could very well happen.
I mean, people can go back and look, but I'm pretty sure my famous words were, this is the sort of game I could see Ipswich winning. Yeah. After everything that had gone on. And lo and behold, Tottenham Hotspur, the gift that keeps on giving. They love a pattern of getting a win. Doesn't matter who that wins against. They could beat Man City. Whoever's next, they've got to give one back for the Premier League, haven't they? Every week.
Yes. Yeah. And I've got to say, look, Ipswich, they're out the relegation zone now, albeit by 1 point. That doesn't matter. You look at the table and you don't care. But they've got, along with Wolves, they've got that albatross off the back, haven't they?
Yeah, it's a perfect time to do it as well, going into an international break, right? Because, they played the positive way, like we're saying. And, there was a bit of luck involved in this, don't get me wrong. But you make your own luck in life. And the way they've taken to the Premier League and the way they've applied themselves, I think we've all enjoyed it. I think we've all enjoyed their bit of reckless abandonment when it goes forward. I'll say I noticed that Tuan Zabi was back in defence for them as well. And it seemed to and a guy called Kajus in midfield who also came in and played very well. And I think little bits like that, all of a sudden can add up into a big difference because they weren't as defensively poor. Don't get me wrong, Tottenham missed some sitters in this. My word, they missed an open goal and all sorts. But I think you make your own luck, and they deserved it.
You do make your own luck. I mean, look, Bournemouth, we were hanging on for grim life, and they probably had the same sort of day that Tottenham did. But I mean, oh come on, look, new boy. I mean, it's a great story, and I love. And I'm looking at Ipswich pretty much the same way as maybe people were looking at Leicester when we came up. I'd love them to do well. I'd love them to stay up with us, of course. But when you've got players that go out there, and I know they've gone down a different route to Steve Cooper. Steve Cooper's gone down the experienced OAP route, where McKenna's gone down the inexperienced, younger, not Premier League proven route. We will know only at the end of the season which particular one works better. But when you've got players that are attempting overhead kicks and it going into the back of the net, I'm sorry to even think when you're a team. And I'm not being derogatory when I say a team like it. So when you're a team that's down the bottom, looking for your first win, to do that, fair play. And I tell you what, I wish they could video that and go and put it on tomorrow morning if they haven't done it today, and make the Leicester players watch that game and say, "You should be like that team in pink."
Yeah, exactly, because structurally they weren't too dissimilar either. It was just one of them was working a bit harder. The overhead kick was a fantastic goal because the Tottenham defenders were so shocked they stood there and watched it happen. Not one of them really wanted to get involved, but it was quite amusing to see Pedro Porro go, "Oh my word, he's just scored an overhead kick," as he stands there with his hands in his pockets. But yeah, so it was quite an amusing one. But Tottenham, I mean, what is this? I mean, the high line was always going to potentially benefit Ipswich, but you're Tottenham Hotspur. You shouldn't be losing this game at home under any circumstances.
No, and we're not being disrespectful to Ipswich there under any but they should have beaten us. Spurs. I mean, I do two shows. I do this YouTube channel and I do a radio show, and on the radio show, Katie Price, aka Jordan, is the gift that keeps on giving, because there's always a story about one of her operations, facelift, boob lift, or whatever, going bust. With this, it's Tottenham Hotspur. They are the gift that just keeps on giving. Sat down in 10th. I thought they'd be doing better this season. Ange was all like, "Well, it's my second season. I always win things in the second season." I don't think you're going to win anything this season, Ange. Do you?
No, I think they've got a big problem because ultimately, if Ange can't motivate them, as a neutral who watches him, it goes, I think he's quite a motivational bloke. He's very passionate about what he believes in. He doesn't seem to be able to get a tune from them. The way he's getting them playing is a very brave style of football, obviously with the high lines, and attacking football. And you've got to commit to it. And I see a Tottenham team that reminds me a little bit of our own Leicester team that isn't fully committed to it. And that is going to be a big problem because they have got quality. I looked at their team sheet and their subs bench and I went, realistically, this is a top 4 team on paper nowadays. Actually, people like Villa shouldn't be above them, but they just can't translate the idea into the on pitch result. Maybe they are cursed. I don't know. Whatever's going on, but it's very bizarre.
I'm now thinking of Mickey Flanagan doing his "You're cursed, you're cursed." I don't know if you've seen it. His gypsy thing.
Oh yeah.
But it just proves as well. And look, I don't want it to be that Ipswich deserved the win. Congratulations. And I'm not saying they won it because Spurs were awful. At the end of the day, you can only play who's against you. And if Spurs decide to be wasteful, Spurs are deciding to be wasteful. But does this prove that being a successful manager in Scotland means diddly squat when it comes down to being a manager in the Premier League?
Well, I think you could argue recently, yes. Historically, probably not with Sir Alex Ferguson. But yeah, I mean, I think recently...
I'll give you one, all right? I'll give you that, Alex Ferguson.
I mean, to take it briefly back to Leicester, Chris, let's not remember, the manager I disliked the most in the last maybe 30 years of Leicester City was Craig Levein. and he came from Scotland. And I just really disliked the way the football was played and the way the club was. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know what it was. I didn't like it at all. So, yeah, I would agree with you, actually, and just say, do you know what? I don't think it translates. You're right.
Can I just say, it was probably one of the worst periods of our
history
for the club. And he'd come from a Hearts side which were doing well in Scotland, other than Rangers and Celtic. It was then all Hearts. My son was a matchday mascot while Craig Levine was manager.
Okay.
And I have to say that he was a very, very nice man.
He comes across as a very nice man. I just didn't like him as a football manager. Same with Ian Holloway. I like Ian Holloway.
I agree. Well, no, funny you should say that, because I have two sons, and the other manager, when the other son was the mascot, was Ian Holloway.
Isn't that bizarre? You used my original nickname for when I used to do silly short YouTube films to start the show, and now look at this. Meant to be, Chris.
Meant to be. Okay, moving on. Ian Holloway was very nice as well, I have to say. Moving on. But look, it's 4 losses, never happened before under Man City under Pep. They're down to second. It's a crisis, isn't it?
Well, it's borderlining it now. They didn't look that awful. The first half, they were actually the better team, and they probably should have scored a couple more goals. And if that had happened, this would never have happened. But there is almost something, as soon as someone mentions it'll be the first time they've lost 4 in a row, it's almost destined to happen, isn't it? Especially against a team like Brighton, who have got the ability. And once they got into the second half, Brighton, the manager had a word with them. Mitoma got some more space on the left, and all of a sudden, the problems were exposed for Man City. But I thought up until the second half, they handled things relatively well, especially bearing in mind the inexperience.
Indeed. You're breaking up a little bit, sorry.
On the day as well.
You'll need to repeat that because you just broke up, mate.
Oh, my apologies. No, it's the internet being dodgy again, isn't it? Yeah, I just said, bear in mind the lack of first team players Man City had in defence in particular. I think they did relatively well in the first half, and it just so happened they couldn't maintain it when Brighton finally started dictating the game a bit more, which is what they should be doing at home. So yeah, great win for Brighton. I don't think it's a disaster for Man City yet, but they do need to get someone in to replace Rodri, because it's a big loss not having him for the season.
Indeed it is. Man who, Chris? Indeed. What we do to have their problems. Next game up. What a game! Under normal circumstances, this would have probably been one of the top games of the weekend on the show. Bournemouth, look, we beaten Man City. Beating Arsenal, and like I said last week, beating Bournemouth isn't for everybody, is it?
No, not at all.
But Brentford, wow. I mean, 5 goals. Unbeaten at home in the Premier League, Brentford. That's all you can do.
16 out of 18 points at home now for Brentford, isn't it? It's remarkable. And Bournemouth once again turned up and also played very well. A draw would have been a fair result. I mean, it was one of those games like you get in the Premier League this season, where there's a few decisions here and there you think, whatever else. But both these teams are just very good at what they do. They haven't got a lot of quality, in depth, but Wissa and, and Bremo should always be in your dream team if you play that, because every week they're going out and getting assists and goals like there's no tomorrow. So fair play to both of them. I think a draw would have probably been a fair result overall, bearing in mind how things went out. But, it's one of those games where I think Bournemouth will do this against someone else later in the season where they should have probably had a point, and they'll nick it 3-2 in the last minute. And both clubs should be applauded for being able to do that.
Yeah, no, totally. Thank you, Fulham, basically, is what I'm going to say for the next one. Natalie Sawyer will be, yes, she will. But she's a delightful girl anyway, Ronald. You know my thoughts on Natalie Sawyer. Before I need to go and take a gold shower. Let's move on. Crystal Palace 0, Fulham 2. Palace won the other week. Didn't last long. I'm still surprised that they're down where they are. Fulham having a good season, though.
Yeah, they are. I mean, Palace look like a bit like Leicester, really. They look like a team that isn't really putting in the right application. I mean, they had a chance to get the goal first in this game, but ultimately, Iwobi, Smith Rowe, these guys just ran the show for Fulham, and every time they went forward, they played incredibly positively. I mean, Smith Rowe has been the signing that has changed Fulham's trajectory.
A great signing.
Unbelievable signing, and to persuade him to come across to Fulham as well and to believe in the project, I think fair play to the football club as well. So no, I mean they should have won by more, really, Chris. Actually, towards the end, there was goals being ruled out and disallowed, but it was all Fulham, and then there was a red card as well from Kamada, which was reckless and stupid, and obviously a red. So not going well for Palace. I think actually they're sleepwalking towards relegation unless they do something.
Is their manager in trouble? Because I mean, he's had to sell. All right, he's kept hold of Gueye, but you're thinking like, come January, if Palace are down there, he's not going to want to stay, is he? And they managed to hold on to him in the summer. They did lose another two of the best players, but I think he's going to be looking over his shoulder come December.
Yeah, it's an unforgiving league, isn't it? And I think the thing that isn't being talked about is actually they do have a lot of injuries at Crystal Palace right now. People like Eze's out, and these players are the ones you can't afford to lose when you're a Crystal Palace, because all of a sudden you've lost your talisman who's going to create 90% of your goal scoring opportunities. So, but they do look a bit lost. They do look a bit flat. Similar to Leicester, I'd be getting a bit anxious for Crystal Palace right now.
I might ask you at the end of this, actually, so to get ready. For your three relegated teams based on the first quarter of the season. But we'll come back to that when we finish the match. Okay. Next up, Chelsea versus Arsenal, which would normally be Smith Rowe has been a fantastic signing. He has indeed, Ronald. Next up, Clash of the Titans, but was it that good?
No, it was a pretty average game of football, really. I'd say Arsenal deserve to win it overall, just about. Chelsea are in this phase right now of getting used to being Enzo ball, and they're doing it fine. There's nothing crazy about it. On a side note, Chris, they've just announced Gary Lineker's leaving Match of the Day.
Have they?
Yeah, just announced on the BBC website. I'm not sure when this is, but this is breaking news. I know you've got a bit of a relationship with Mr. Lineker, so I thought you'd like to know. I thought you'd like to know that one, my friend. Quickly,
he'll be. Where will his next, £500,000 come from?
I was going to say, I was talking about maybe I'll get a transfer like Salah, but it looks like it was meant to be for Gary himself, who's gone off and got a bit more money. He'll probably.
Can I just say, the BBC? I write for the BBC. The BBC, if you need somebody, I'm here. Anyway, sorry, carry on, mate.
We're all here, mate. Yeah. No. So, So, I mean, I think for Chelsea, like, they're not far away now, but they've actually still got, obviously, a really big squad. They need to get rid of some. Colwill didn't particularly look like he was good enough to play in their back line, to be frank. Fofana was very good, but Colwill was the one that was being a yard or two off here that was creating opportunities for Arsenal. Momentary switch off for Arsenal for the equaliser. Apart from that, I think they probably should have won the game, Chris. Honestly, they just didn't take their chances. Isn't this the problem we've been saying about Arsenal for weeks? They need to have that bit of quality.
Do you think they'll look back at the end of the season and go, these are the games that maybe cost us?
I think so. I think this is a game which they probably had to win to give themselves that little bit of, we're probably still in the title picture. But maybe it's not a bad thing just getting the point and now going, well, we're probably not in the two-horse race that's going to unfold for the Premier League. But it is disappointing because they seem so close but yet so far simultaneously, which is a very bizarre place to be in as a football club.
Yes, indeed. Okay, and then obviously, it was going to be, hello, it's Scott. Scott's popped in. Teams to go down, Southampton. Well, yep. Well,
we'll get to this.
Interesting. Yep, let me just start that because we will come back to that. The last game, which was, I suppose, with this result, was always going to be the last game we're going to look at, and that is West Ham United 0, Everton 0. Lopapintikigo Kachagugu, whatever it's called, needed a win, didn't get it. Everton probably will be the happier of the two teams with the point, but overall, neither team really have come out of this can't come out of this being happy.
No, I mean, the thing you've got to look at is West Ham have not got any better than what they were under the Moyes. And in fact, they've actually got worse, which is a big, big problem in the whole point of making the change in the first place for this season. Like you say, Chris, Everton were happy with the point. They deserved the point. It was a better point for them. West Ham have really got to look at themselves because they spent a lot of money this summer as well. They spent 40 million on Kilman. I think it's nearly 100 million they spent out in players to add to this.
Yeah.
And it's really not going well. And it's not going well to a point where they've got to be looking over their shoulder now. So I wonder if there is going to be a change in this international break. It might come from this slot.
It might do indeed. Right. Let us put. There's the table as it looks at the moment. Let me just put this back up. And look, Opta have done the old Opta supercomputer. Let me put my teeth in. Opta supercomputer predicts trouble for promoted side. Chances of relegation. Southampton 94.9% chance of getting relegated. Ouch.
Yeah.
Ipswich 70.7%. Ooh. Leicester 46.9%. But Wolves, 44.4%. So out of the three that have come up, we have obviously looked like they seem to think we have got the better chance of survival. However, Everton are on 18.8% and Palace are on 18.3%. So it looks, according to Opta, obviously the king of stats, it's any 3 from 4. Now, we just said then Scott has gone Southampton, Ipswich, and Palace. Your 3 after a quarter of the season.
I've got 2 of these, and the third one I hate saying, but I'm going to go with Southampton. I'm going to go with Crystal Palace, and unfortunately, Chris, I'm going to go for Leicester City.
Oof.
I know it's a heavy one through our own podcast, but I just looking around, I think Wolves will make a manager change, and I think that'll make a big difference. I think West Ham will make a manager change, which rules them out. Everton will plod along, and they'll be fine. And then I just look at the fight between Ipswich and Leicester, and I just think McKenna has probably got more buy-in from his players than we have with Cooper and ours, and that might just be the difference come the end of it. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want to be right on this one. I want this to be shoved back in my face and become 16th or whatever. But at the moment, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say it's probably going to be us.
Okay, well, let me put my 2 penneth. My 3 to go down. First of all, when they look, West Ham will come in for Cooper. We can but hope. Yvonne, hi Yvonne, how are you doing? This will be with Cooper in charge. I presume you're saying that's the same for you as well.
I don't think they're going to sack him, so I think he's going to be in charge. I think by the time anything's done, it might be too late.
Right. I think it's going to be Southampton. As things stand, it's going to be Leicester. I'm sorry, but it really pains me to say it. But then look, take this as reverse psychology, because I did have Nottingham Forest to finish 20th. I'm sorry, Rabbit Man. I hate to do this, but I am going to have to go for Wolves. I was going to go for Ipswich. I think you will just have enough to. I think Ipswich will do a lesson. They'll finish in 17th and stay up. I think Wolves, that's with Cooper and with O'Neill.
I think you've got a point. If O'Neill stays long term, I think they might be down there longer than what they really need to be, and they might get in trouble. I can agree with that.
Yeah. Okay. So we are down to 4-4-2, and let's have a look at this one, shall we? Right after this.
The TalkSport Fan Network is the ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts,
including Leicester Till I Die, independent analysis and reaction for the Foxes faithful.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
Unbeatable club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Follow the podcast on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Indeed, and some of these, I mean, I'll be honest with you, my notes have been changed completely as I've been going along because the news has been moving up. I'm going to start with, I'm going to finish with this one, but let's start with this one. We mentioned earlier David Coote. I don't know if you've seen, I haven't seen this. So again, I'm going to say thanks to Doug at the Dugout Football Channel. This is David Coote and I'm guessing a friend recording, having a bit of fun. See what your thoughts are on this.
What did you think of the Liverpool game earlier when you were fourth official?
Liverpool was shit.
What do you think of Jurgen Klopp?
Cunt, absolutely.
What would you say? Why would you say that Jurgen Klopp was a cunt?
Aside from having a right pop at me when I ref them against Burnley in lockdown, then he accused me of lying, and then just had a right fucking pop at me, and I've got no interest in speaking to someone who's fucking arrogant. So I do my best not to speak to him. Milner's all right. I get on with so
James Milner. You get on with James Milner.
You can see me there with mask on.
Yeah, mask on, obviously.
Yeah, COVID got to be done. Social distancing, right? We're 2 meters apart.
We have to social distance.
Yeah. So, but oh my god, German cunt, fuck me.
Long story short, Jurgen Klopp's a cunt. Liverpool are all fucking bellends, and we hate Scousers.
Ouch.
I was going to say, did you know it was going to be that graphic, Chris, before you played it? Because I had seen it earlier.
I knew it was going to be that graphic, but I think you've got to let it go out. Look, it's a football channel.
It's news, isn't it?
Go on to any watch along, and I'm using colourful language. I think if you take that colourful language out of it, you don't get the benefit. You would probably go, well, what's up with it? And I wasn't saying ouch because of the language. I was going ouch because there's a guy that knows he's being filmed. You know, he's holding when he went like this. It's like me going like that to you. Oh, look at that, you know.
Yeah.
And so he knows he's being filmed. What was he doing? He's been suspended, quite rightly. There's no defence for him. He cannot referee. I don't think he can referee in this country again.
No, he probably can't now because it's way too it's way too graphic, like I say. The way to talk about it. It's quite shocking. It has actually shocked me when I saw it earlier because I thought ultimately you're there as a professional to do a job on either side of it. And all I saw there was quite a lot of ego banging against the potential ego in Jurgen Klopp, and I don't think that's a very good way to handle yourself as an individual anyway. Apparently he's coming out now and saying it's an AI simulated video. All the words have been. So whatever that means, if that is real or not, that is something I guess you have to keep an option open. I think it's unlikely because if it is AI, it's some really good CGI they've done. But in which case, you've probably got to take accountability. And also, it's not a good look on the character of officials in football, especially at a time when that's been questioned quite publicly in the Premier League with VAR and decisions. We don't need to see referees spouting such extreme bias based on personal experience. No. There's people none of us get on with at work. You try your best not to be calling them the C word, you know, and running around and, you know, you try and handle yourself.
You don't want to be caught calling them anything, really, do you?
Well, you shouldn't put yourself in that position either. No. So I'm quite surprised. He must have had a few drinks that night. I bet he regrets it now. Because like you say, I don't see how he can be refereeing in his country anymore now.
I mean, he refereed Liverpool's 2-0 win against Villa on Saturday. He was refereeing that. One of the Premier League's most experienced officials, has been refereeing matches in the top flight since 2018. The video being shared appears to refer to a Premier League match that Coote officiated between Liverpool and Burnley in July 2020, which finished 1-1. Klopp criticised Coote after the match, saying the referee failed to give fouls for challenges made on Liverpool players. I actually I was having a go at the referee during our game. I thought the referee and the linesman were absolutely awful, but it was awful for both sides.
Yeah.
All right, you could say he put your blue tinted glasses on and say he sort of favoured Man United because it was Old Trafford, and you come up with that old one. But what you say during a match is one thing for me. Now, if do you remember when Nigel Pearson turned round to the fan and said, "Oh, fuck off and die"?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, my attitude to that was, "Well done, Nigel."
Me too. Yeah.
Because why should Nigel have fans? And let's be honest with you, using colourful language themselves during the match. Why can't he turn around and he was defending his players? Now, if Klopp, I'm sure Klopp didn't turn around during the game and go, "Excuse me, Mr. Coote, I do believe that decision was wrong. Would you mind just having a word with?" No. What the fuck are you doing? He's going to be like that because it's in the heat of a game.
That's what I don't understand. You're correct. It's in the heat of the game, Chris. So why is it now got all these afters going on?
Yes.
I mean, that's down to also two individuals, but also you would say there needs to be an etiquette or a level of standard brought on the game, which makes sure that doesn't happen because it's rubbish. It's awful.
Yeah. I mean, yes, like you say, you just don't do it post game, do you? That's the thing. It's colourful language. I'm sure if Klopp had said, "What the fuck do you think's going on here?" and David Coote had turned around and said, "Look, fuck off and just get on with the game," nobody would have complained because it's 6-1, like say handbags at dawn. But in this, now whether you say, did he look drunk? It wasn't particularly very good videoing. The video shows him with another man and lasts for just over a minute. The circumstances of how the video emerged are unclear. It obviously, well, I think the other guys probably dropped him in it. Liverpool are aware of the video but not commenting at this stage. PGMOL says we will not be making any further comments on this case until its investigation is completed. English Football League Chairman Rick Parry said PGMOL is dealing with it. They've suspended him. They've acted quickly and they will make sure they deal with it thoroughly and professionally. Referees are required to inform PGMOL of the club they support. I don't think he supports either particular club, to be honest with you. But yes, they do, and that obviously makes sense. See, I always think that with referees, so let's say I apply to be a referee and I get the job, and I put down the club that I support is Leicester. So if I was the FA, I'd say, okay, so he doesn't get any Leicester games, but we're also not going to give him we're not going to give him the Forest game.
Yeah, rivalries.
Yeah, so even if Forest are playing Newcastle, I don't get that game because one of my main rivals in there. Yes, I can have the Villa game because they're not a rival, but I did. My first thought was, well, does he drop down to the Championship? And I thought, well, that pissed me off last season because last season we had a couple of referees that had been naughty and dropped down to the Championship. Why should the Championship get the dross of the Premier League? If you're not good enough to do work in the Premier League, if you've done something wrong, then you're not good enough to work in the Championship. Because the Championship referees, in my opinion, were a hell of a lot better than the Premier League ones that came down.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the interesting thing is once again, one thing I will say is you've got to be careful in the modern world because there's someone always with a camera anywhere, and the world is not forgiving as it used to be in the old days. I mean, that is one thing I would suggest to him. If he wanted to show a bit of character, perhaps he should issue a sincere apology and say it was in the heat of the moment, and actually offer a public apology to Jurgen Klopp. I think that would be quite a smart thing to do. But I would also suggest refereeing is kind of like politics in some ways. the characters it attracts to the top of the head of the table are not necessarily characters that we would look at and see in a positive light. They normally exhibit characteristic traits like narcissism, and things like this, in a higher status. And the problem with that is then you're banging heads, and we have these situations, and it does cause problems in the game itself, which we've considered as happening.
I don't want to get political at all, but when you look at it and you go, well, David Lammy a few years ago said that Trump was a womanizing bigot or whatever. It was a whole run of things. And then he's turning around to a BBC podcast and it's old news, move on. And could you say that about this? I mean, Klopp isn't a manager in the Premier League now. Burnley aren't in the Premier League now.
It's big news. It's big news. No, I think it's big news. When I was living in Toronto, there was a big news story that broke in Toronto, and that was that the mayor had got caught on camera smoking crack cocaine. The mayor of the city. True story, this.
I'll raise my glass to that man.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a bit of a lunatic, a gentleman called Rob Ford. He sadly passed now of cancer a few years ago, but he was a fascinating character to have lived in Toronto under, let's put it that way. But similar to this, like I say, what you're doing in the heat of the moment for a bit of banter and also to try and maybe impress a couple of people. It looked like he was trying to impress some people that I wouldn't really be willing to lower myself to impress, which is what he did. I think you've got to be more conscious of that nowadays, and this is the result. And he's probably going to have the book thrown at him.
I think deservedly so.
Yeah,
I'm playing devil's advocate in the other ways. I think his refereeing career in this country is over. Whether he can get one anywhere else is another matter. And then you've got to think, well, hang on, Jurgen Klopp is now one of the head honchos at Red Bull. They've got teams in different countries. You've got. I mean, look, we do this, and we could say things on here, and I always have to follow anything controversial with the word allegedly. Just to cover myself.
I don't think either of us have got any bad intent with what we say. We're actually just trying to be open and honest and real.
Yeah, and like I say, and what I say in the watch along is completely different to what I will say here. And my effing and blinding on the watch along is it's what you do at a football game, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know. I can't see any way around that for him. But look, that was one of our four. Moving on, we mentioned earlier, I can't get around my head that Coventry have sacked Mark Robbins. He is stuck by them but then again, I'm talking about sacking Steve Cooper. So, am I any different? But he's got them from League Two to the Championship within a playoff win of going up to the Premier League, within seconds of getting to an FA Cup final. Yes, they've started badly this season, but that guy has kept that club going.
He has. I think it's a complete shock list, because the problem with the Championship is you're only really as good as your last season, of course, because it is that sort of division. But I think to remove him now, when actually they are quite near the bottom and they haven't quite got warmed up yet, in order to bring in something new, it is a bit of a gamble, because if it doesn't pay off, all of a sudden we're looking at a situation like Huddersfield last year, where you might be needing Neil Warnock to come in and try and bail you out of a situation of your own creating. So I think they probably, I think you're right. They've kind of forgotten the history here as well, to think they weren't playing in their home ground. They were in League Two when he took over. He's brought them up the division. He's stabilised them. They're now a financially stable football club, which they certainly weren't under Mickey Adams, which is where it all went wrong back in the first place many years ago now. So it's a complete shock, Chris. And I'm gutted for him as well, because he's a very likeable man. He's done wonderful things for that football club.
I would give him a punt now, to be honest with you. That was punt, by the way, before anybody wants to do a clip of this and put it out there. Is Mike Ashley, does he own Coventry now?
Oh, I didn't know that. That's a good question. He might do. Let's have a look.
I know he'd gone in for them. I didn't know whether he actually did buy. I mean, at the moment they're sat in 17th, and you would look at that and go, oh, all right, they're in 17th. That's not bad, but they've only got 16 points, and Cardiff are in 22nd on 15. So I suppose when you look at it like that, possibly.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he. No, it doesn't look like he owns Coventry. Sorry to
No.
interrupt, Chris. I'm just checking.
Oh, he owns the Coventry Stadium, says Scott. Sorry.
Stadium, Stadium. Yeah, I thought he was looking at Derby a while ago or something.
No.
But
And
yeah.
Ronald says here, I don't think Mark Robbins will be out of management for very long. No, I don't think so as well. And if he came to Leicester, I'd be all right. Doug is in. Hi, Doug. How you doing? And thank you very much for your video, mate. You missed it. You were the third game. But thank you very much for that. And yeah, you're loving life as a Liverpool fan, obviously. The other news, of course, and look, I'd take this guy at Leicester. Van Nistelrooy's left Man United.
I thought you were going to bring this up because I actually read it as a note on my thing. I was like, if only the Leicester players in this game played with the effort the Man United players did under Van Nistelrooy, question mark. We've done this before with Solskjaer, haven't we? Before we've gone, well, Solskjaer did pretty well, maybe. Van Nistelrooy was linked to us in the summer, I believe, as well, very thinly as an option as well. Very thinly. I like him. I tell you what I liked about him. He had a great aura. I don't know much about his tactics. I don't know much about his man management. I just felt the way he handled himself was very, very good. And I think that can say a lot as a starting point. So I'm not suggesting we should. The problem is I'm kind of in that vibration like a lot of us fans now, which is I'm a little bit a cat that's been kicked. I'm a bit shaky. The dog that's gone into the food basket and got caught and been hit around the head or whatever. I'm a little bit on edge. So I'm not quite sure what would be the correct move to make, because it would be a brave move. Whatever a move from Cooper or sticking with Cooper even is going to be brave. But I wouldn't be against it. I wouldn't be against it from an energy side.
My worry is, would he come? Because he could walk into a very big club somewhere. It's whether he looks at it as a project. I mean, that's the thing. Someone like a Mark Robbins would look at us and go, yeah, that's a step up for me. Where Ruud van Nistelrooy could probably go, what, Leicester? You're joking, He's managed PSV, He's done a very good job at Man United. He knew where he stood. Hiya, Ant, how you doing? Welcome along. Ant's Leicester fan channel there. Give it a follow. So I don't think he will come to Leicester at all. So we've done 2 of the 4. We've done David Coote and we've done a couple of managers. I'm glad about that because my 4th story was a very, very weak one. So I'm glad I couldn't get that one. But this one I'm going for. The headline earlier was FIFA must halt Saudi World Cup bid due to human rights issues, says Amnesty International. Have we learnt nothing from Qatar?
Apparently not, by the sounds of it. No. Well, it's interesting how Amnesty are getting involved in this one. I can't remember if they were involved in Qatar. I'm pretty sure they were, and they said a few things about it. The problem we got with this is they want to throw money at this, and any business, be it football or whatever, would be daft not to take the money that is being freely thrown at them, which is of a high value. But of course, like you say, the problem is there is a cultural challenge historically. If that continues going forward, we've seen positive change, not to get too political here, but in the Saudi culture, things have changed. Is a bit more modernized nowadays. So I'd cut without knowing more going forward, if you see what I mean, in regard to how they're going to handle things. Sorry, we broke up a bit there. I hope you caught all that.
No, I didn't, but I kind of got the gist. I mean, I actually watched it's weird. I went down a bit of a Netflix rabbit hole and Amazon and watching these, and there's a thing about, I think it was over about 3-hour shows, and it was about Saudi Arabia and obviously all the money that and obviously, they've got this sport. Obviously, they're going mad at the football at the moment. They're throwing millions at it. Steven Gerrard and all these other players that have gone over there. The amazing player that is Damari Gray. And all these big names have gone over there. And it was a case of it was showing us what was happening. And it was a very interesting program because obviously the first bit of it was sort of not sport related, and the guy that is currently the king of Saudi Arabia was something like 34th in line, something ridiculous like that. It was you go down the family tree and you go across and then down a bit more and then back, and it was one of those. But he'd managed to manoeuvre himself into the right position, so he got the job. Now he's trying to make Saudi Arabia westernized, which is a worry because that's what they tried to do with Iran, and look what happened there. But he's trying to make it, and he's trying to get sport to be big over there, and that's why they've got the what's the one? The Saudi Pro League and all that, and why they're paying money just to get it up and going. So he's throwing money. I mean, if they could get the World Cup in Saudi Arabia, he would be the happiest man, and he will not, having watched that program, he will not care what it costs to get the World Cup there. Now, I'm not saying that he's bribing or anything like that, because of course those days at FIFA have gone, allegedly. But I just think we can't have another Winter World Cup.
No,
I'm sorry, you can't.
No, you can't.
Even with all the surely we've got to look at that and go, no, let's just walk away from this. Or are we saying because obviously Mexico, Brazil, and they're bloody hot as well, aren't they?
Well, this is it. Well, it's interesting because the other one's obviously Mexico, America, and Canada, isn't it? Which is, which is a hell of a distance as well when you compare it to just Saudi Arabia as a singular location. Saudi Arabia, of any country in the world, has the youngest average population age, and I think there is just so you know, and I think there's a concerted effort to attract the younger Saudis back home because a lot of them are educated in the West, say for example in the UK or America. So then obviously with the changing away from the oil industry, I think this plays into that as well, Chris. I think, and like you say, 34th in line, he's a very smart gentleman, obviously, and he's gone, this is my vision for Saudi Arabia beyond oil, which is very important going forward for any Middle Eastern economy or any economy that's based around oil. So it's interesting. I think there's not a lot we can do about it. I think you've got to have a little bit of faith. You don't want to ignore the past, obviously, but you would hope there would be that collaboration officially between what we want and what they want, and hope it can come good. But it is obviously a challenging one because it's new ground for all of us, isn't it?
It is, and I don't know enough politically to say what they're good at, what they're bad at, what they've been accused of, or anything like that. But again, how far do you go back, or is it still happening? You say, well, England are never going to have the World Cup again because of the slave trade. You just don't know these days where these things are going to go. Ant says there, a very good point. They earn more money in the Winter World Cup, so there's your answer.
Money talks.
It does. Right. This is a very interesting one to end on. So, like I say, if anybody is wondering what the 442 is, it's 4 items of news for 2 presenters. I was really chuffed with myself last week when I came up with that.
It was amazing, Chris. I remember you messaged me straight away with so much glee, and I was like, "Yeah, it sounds cool. We'll give it a go, eh? And you're trying to catch me out with questions. I like it.
Yeah.
It's a bit dangerous.
Just remember this: no Gary Lineker now. I can come up with ideas like that. Anyway, the fourth one is, and this has come out. I've not seen too much about this since, but and whether I saw it already, I don't know. England could be excluded from UEFA tournaments and English teams if the government appoint an independent regulator.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah. Now, I know, I don't know, again, enough about it, but I think it was Nigeria, or certainly one of those countries around there in Africa that got involved, and the government suspended the governing body or something for the football, and they went, you're not in the World Cup because you're the government, you do not football, it's not political, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And there was a rumour going about that, well, and I suppose it depends what powers this independent regulator has, I guess.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I can completely understand where the Premier League is coming from their interests, which is they do not want a government telling them what to do when they're a multi-million pound business, multi-billion pound business. They do not want any interference in, what is going to be, their way of making money. And of course, they don't want to be under the microscope either, because all of a sudden they might be asking you for more tax and all the rest of it, which is the way it seems to be going. So I don't know really. It's I imagine why we would like as fans an independent regulator, just to give us a bit more clarity and a bit more, I think, faith. Because I think the hardest thing about where football in this country is right now is I think a lot of fans generally lack faith in the product. And I think the way it used to be is now almost a foregone memory, and what we see before us now isn't really the football we really want to see, especially with the low vibrational element of all the VAR decisions and also the money side of it, which seems to be counterproductively interfering with the game. So I can see why the government would consider it, because obviously there's a lot of noise being created. So ironically, the Premier League might be making a rod for its own back, Chris, because the more noise you create, the more money you normally bring in, but consequently, the more eyes you have on you, the more problems you can face.
It's interesting because this was a last government idea that the new government, the different government, is running with. So look, only time will tell. But like you say, it depends on what the role of the independent regulator is. I'm sure it's not going to be one that's going to get involved in the day-to-days, but you don't know. But we will wait and see. I'm sure that one will run and have legs. Tom, thank you so very, very much, sir. Really have appreciated. I love this show, and we're not here next Monday.
No, we get a week off.
We get a week off because there's no. I mean, at least Leicester are going to have a good weekend.
Oh mate, I'll still be watching the Leafs, so they still got a chance to drop me in it, for Mile of Love. So yeah, so I'm sure I'll make up for it in other ways. It was Leicester this week, to be fair, though.
So just say it again, the Leafs. So that's ice hockey, isn't it?
Yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, put it this way, Chris. Yeah. Feel sorry for my neighbours, because when the playoffs are on, you say about shouting, doing the watch-alongs. If I did a watch-along here, I have to put disclaimers up in the neighbourhood saying, be warned that I will be shouting at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I will not be able to control myself. Last time I had to gag myself because I screamed when we took the lead in the playoffs against Boston. But anyway, it's because I'm passionate for it.
What stage are you at of the season there now?
Oh, it's crazy. It's 82-game season before playoffs, and every playoff 82. Yeah, and every playoff round, Chris, is best of seven games against the team, not just home and away. So when I say that there's emotion in ice hockey, to win the Stanley Cup, you've got to be willing to die for it. It literally is that serious.
Hell.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. Get Klopp over there. Get Guardiola over there. He won't have them playing all these games.
Not at all. Yeah, Chris, they beat each other up as well for fun in between it. They're like, I'll just have a fight and make it more interesting. So,
that's the bit I love about ice hockey, is when it just goes. Is that, like with wrestling, it's put on and whatever. Is that put on, or do they really, really go for it?
Oh, no, they really go for it, because this is the interesting thing about ice hockey, just quickly, and that is that the referees have the law book of the NHL, but the players actually dictate the game. They're basically running the game. So if you mess around with someone and attack someone's star player, expect retaliation. And of course, the reason they allow it is because there's a belief it's better to allow you to drop your gloves and have a fight rather than hit each other with sticks and ice skates, which are sharp. So... Yes. It's actually a way to control the game. So, it's a bit more different than football, but that's why I like it so much, and it's such a good contrast for me.
I don't know. There's a lot to be said. Just let a couple of players have a fight and get on with it, But it's not going to happen.
It's amazing how therapeutic it is when your team's playing badly and you see one of your players beat the other one up. It really cheers you up. I wish I could see Vardy do it more often for Leicester.
Indeed, mate, thank you so very much. I'm sure we will be doing different shows between now and the next couple of weeks, so we'll probably be doing something, but this show in itself, in this format, will be back in 2 weeks' time, when we've just got a little matter of playing Chelsea.
The Enzo return, mate. Oh exactly. My word, look in with a big one. Anyway, mate, lovely to see you.
And you, mate. All the best. Have a good one. Thanks so much. Take care.
Cheers, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Things can only get better, as they say. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Ray says, yes, I am a Canadian, and there's real fighting in ice hockey. I love it. I love a bit of that. I'm not sure how I got to see it, but there was somehow I was able to watch some games anyway, and I love the fighting bit. Look, we're going to be back tomorrow with the debate show. I think that could very well be a Cooper-free zone. On Wednesday, we'll be back with this on Wednesday, if I can find it. Have I still got it? That is the question. I don't think I have. Nope, I took it down. Two Men Down the Pub. There we go. We've got this. This is Wednesday at 7. Two Fans Down the Pub, or as I've renamed it, Talking Balls. Me and Craig getting pissed in the pub on camera. What could possibly go wrong? And then hopefully what we'll do on Thursday, I'll be chatting Steve Cooper with Ant. Is Ant an in or an out? Or is he even a shake it all about? That is the question. Thanks to everybody that's been in. Thanks to Tom. As I always say, great doing the show with him. Please do, if you are new, subscribe, smash that like button, and click that notification bell. And if you want to give us a support, $1.99, become a channel member. And if you are already a member, thank you very much. I will see you tomorrow night at 7. I'm off now to prepare for an interview tomorrow with Bucks Fizz. It's all go, it's all life. All I'll say is thanks very much. Take care, good night, and I'll see you later. Bye.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.